Hey everyone, this is Tony Holbein. You are listening to The Revenue Formula with Mikkel and Tony. In today's episode, we are talking about Chegg, a company whose stock price has tumbled 99% since the introduction of ChatGPT. We run through what went wrong with that company and also what you can learn from it. Today's episode is brought to you by Everstage, the top-rated platform to automate sales commissions. You can create a single hub for your reps to track all their deals, earnings, and performance history, thanks to Everstage's seamless integration with Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, Slack, and MS Teams. Reps can also know exactly how much they could earn with Crystal, Everstage's one-of-a-kind commission forecasting module. Visit everstage.com to learn more and help your sales teams ace 2025.
So last night, I basically woke up with like a jolt of lightning going through my body because the fire alarm went off in the hallway. And I run out there and obviously nothing's gone. No fire, battery dead,
but
or
that's
something is defective.
Scary.
But it's like, ugh, I was like, my heart was racing. I was standing there and I can just hear like everybody is snoring. No one registered anything. And I asked them this morning, they're like, did none of you hear like the fire alarm last night? No, none of them heard. So probably, yeah, we need something more like intense.
Sounds a little bit like the story of revenue operations, you know?
No, exactly.
Like alarm blaring, things going sideways. And then, they're like, hey, but didn't you see? It's like, no, I didn't see anything. I was like, sorry, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
No, exactly. No, so that was good fun. That was good fun.
But you do know that I think battery-powered fire alarm systems, I think they're not legal anymore. Just so you know.
No. Okay. Wow.
FYI.
It's going to be so awesome. Like when I use AI to create like the different chapters, this one is going to be labeled battery powered smoke detectors. And just because I said it like this now, that's going to be the chapter. That's going to be it. Pretty amazing. Like we were talking about, we've been using AI more and more.
It would be so funny if it labeled it terrible intro.
Yeah. Idiotic hosts.
Jump over to the next
boring conversation.
Yeah.
No, you and I, we literally just talked about, we've been using AI more and more and more. Obviously, it's a thing we care deeply about. One of the things we're going to talk about today is obviously the Kodak of AI, Chegg, right? We're going to talk a bit about that today. We've been using deep research, not conducting it. We've been using it to help create this show. We've been using ChatGPT to do specific analyses of investor calls, of videos on YouTube, etc. I think for us, for you and I as hosts, is fundamentally even change some of the things we could and would talk about and some of the information that we have, which is just to say it's definitely going to change a lot of things for a lot of folks, us included.
So as an example, right, to kind of to drive this point a little bit further home, because like almost, I don't want to say we're journalists or anything. Like we're not. We're just, we're hobbyists. We're hobbyists. Yeah. No, but I listen a lot to the New York Times Opinion podcast from Ezra Klein. Fantastic show. I mean, you need to be interested in US politics to kind of care. But kind of hear the segment on AI, which obviously, I listen to. And, he's not one of those AI acolytes that maybe you think we are.
Fair, which is fair.
I think he's a little bit more level-headed about this. Yeah. But, he's working at the New York Times, kind of, he's a professional and he does these things for a living. He's like, goes really deep with that stuff. Yeah. And he used deep research to ask them like, really complicated question in preparation for a show that he wants to do. Yeah. And he has a staff of a couple of researchers. Like, Harvard, Princeton, what have you, people that actually made it into New York Times to get paid shitty salaries, but do this like all day long. And he was like, well, I put this into deep research and the results I got out, there were an average result that I would expect from one of my analysts to produce after 2 weeks work.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He didn't say this is the top of the crop. I've never seen any of my analysts do anything better than this. Yeah, he said it's the average expectation of what these guys would be doing, but like obviously after 2 weeks' time. And 2 weeks' time, if you're the New York Times and you probably live in New York City or something like this, I mean that's still I think $5,000. If not $10,000 basically 2 weeks time, right? So just kind of keep this in mind, right? So kind of some of these things are starting to come and they're going to be more surrounding us with better examples, by the way, in the future. But today we have what kind of an example do we have for you guys today?
No, so I was just going to say, like, before we get there, like, so what you're really saying is either you and I improve the quality of the show or we get replaced by AI. That's what you're saying, basically.
Oh yeah, I think Yeah. I think what people would still be missing is like a shitty introduction.
Yeah.
It's like
hearing our stories about children and fire smoke detectors and whatnot. No, I agree. That's what sells this show. That's what makes it unique, you know? It's like Conan. Why would you watch Conan if not for him? Do you know what I mean? Anyway, we're going to talk a bit about the Kodak of AI, which is currently Chegg. Currently, that is Chegg. It is a company which stock price has not soared, pretty much the opposite. It's dropped 99% in the last couple of years.
99%.
Yeah, that's like, it feels like they would file for Chapter 11 anytime soon when you hear that story. It's not the case. Kind of in a, really hilarious twist of events, they are profitable. Yeah. They are profitable. They're making money. So we can laugh all we want, but they are making money, right? The thing is, they've seen interest on Google search drop also from an index of 100 about 4 years ago to 25 today, 25 index. So it is a company that is doing the opposite of growing. Their latest earnings call, revenue was down 25% year over year. They basically lost 21% of their subscribers. And this is from already having lost subscribers.
So this is from like this quarter to the quarter last year.
Yes.
But from the quarter last year to the quarter like the year before, they lost over 70% of their revenues. Right? Like
so
it's actually insane.
Yeah. And so they've obviously also, like some other companies, I think maybe you've seen on LinkedIn the graph of HubSpot's traffic that's just cratering post ChatGPT, right? Obviously, as a company, they also were depending on Google search. And what do you do when you really suffer as a business and you have some money to spare? Well, you start suing, apparently. So they are suing Google for their, I think, AI search experience, which is apparently taking away from their share. Basically, their acquisition is running behind, right? So let's just put it like this. It's a company in distress or duress. Which one is it? Who knows? They're in trouble. They're in trouble.
Let's just say they're effed.
They're effed.
We're not professionals here.
And maybe for all sense of purposes, before we take it further, before we take this story further, because obviously AI is to blame, right? AI is to blame. Some idiotic AI agent should be fired for this. But before we get that far,
need to roll,
No, exactly. And you and I just talked about it. Europeans, we have quite a few in our audience, given the location we're recording from, which is Europe. Some would call it the heart of Europe because it's Denmark.
Love you, really.
I'm just
whoever said
I don't know.
That.
I don't know. Who said that? What is Chegg? What are they doing? What is this company? Let's just paint that picture before we get into what the heck went down here.
So let me maybe tell the story. And first of all, everyone's hearing Chegg. Okay, CHECK. No.
Yeah.
No, that's not how you spell them. It's CHEGG. Yeah. So
like
Chegg
this out. No.
Yeah, I think you totally got it. And everyone knows now where this show is being recorded from because, English is our second language. Yeah, but anywho, so this is actually kind of, I think it was 3 guys out of their dorm room started to realize, oh, wow, we kind of need to buy those expensive textbooks. And we barely touch them because, I mean, let's be honest. And then we kind of, throw them away or kind of resell them. So what if we could change that dynamic a little bit? So what they did is they started to just, buy those books and rent them out.
Yeah.
Which is totally smart. Yeah. And obviously that, messed with the business model that all those publisher houses had, right? Because that's the idea. So what they then did is they, in a very logistically heavy exercise, and I think this was in 2010 or something like this when they started, right? They're not super old, but they're also not
10, but
yeah. They basically kind of got this up to like roughly 10 million euros in AR, or however, it's a consumer thing, so probably you wouldn't call it AR.
Yeah.
And then they had this Netflix moment of like, oh, you know what? Actually, sending out DVDs, I think that sucks. I think streaming this online, that's cool. So what did they start doing? They, instead of renting out those textbooks in physical shape, they started to offer them basically online, right? Yeah. And with that business model came a lot of things like preparing them for, quizzes, for exams, helping with tutoring. And they basically layered a bunch of products on top that students really liked.
Yeah.
But Mikkel, which product did they like the most about Chegg?
The one that gets them a high grade for no effort.
Yeah.
They like cheating, apparently. They like cheating. So there, I think in my head, the simplest way to put it, and I put it in my takeaway, is like, you know what? They monetized cheating. That's what they did. I remember studying at university, fellow classmates of mine, they would pay for additional courses that just sprinted through the material to make sure you had learned what needed to be learned before the exam so you could pass, right? That was like the entry point, not cheating, but actually, hey, repetition of the learning, right? And I think, let alone the book industry, that's like $1 billion industry. Just imagine all the students who really want to get into med school and need a high grade. And all of a sudden there's this company charging $20 a month. And with it, you can get answers to your test. Do you think people will want to use that? Well, yes. Yeah. I mean, they use that.
Think about the friction that probably most of us who had to study the old way.
Yeah.
Think about the friction we had to cheat.
Yeah.
Like they removed some of that friction. And now you might wonder, well, how does that actually really work, right? You're kind of in the room, like everything is, sealed and you just have a pen and a piece of paper. Well, enter COVID.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong?
Enter the pandemic and everyone being on an iPad or laptop, totally, surely not cheating. And guess what they did, right? Kind of everyone basically...
in North Carolina, I have this in North Carolina, just that state. They caught 200 students misusing the platform for one course. Yeah. Just imagine how many different universities, how many different courses, and 201 course. It's like, and then misuse. That's cute, by
misuse.
The way.
Thank you very much. But the thing is, obviously, kind of you have those digital tests, right? You kind of it's always a multiple choice in the US. You kind of copy paste the question and Chegg basically kind of gave you the answer. You clicked A. Done.
The thing is also people are lazy. Like I heard this from a teacher of mine in, what do we call it? High school, college? Doesn't matter. He was like, well, the best example of cheating I've seen is someone submitted an essay and then there was an argument. It was a solid essay, but then there was an argument all of a sudden that we ladies feel strongly about. It was a guy who submitted the essay. Come on, like we're also lazy. So of course you get caught, right? I think the crazy thing about COVID, by the way, it just propelled their growth. Like they grew 54% all of a sudden. And I literally remember noting, there's a fast growing tech company. Should I maybe buy some shares in that? I was like, no, don't get it.
Is for people to kind of understand the magnitude. They were already public before COVID hit.
Yeah,
like
they were
already public.
It was perfect.
And then the revenues, which were like, if you're a public company, they're going to be substantial, right? Yeah. And then as a public company, revenues soared 54%. Think about that.
Yeah. That's like
when was the last time that, NVIDIA, Tony. Okay. That aside. But like, when was the last time for the public company to kind of just jump 50% in revenue? That's insane. It's crazy.
It's like accounting era, but usually it's the other way. And then it's like very bad. Very bad indeed. And it's also around the time when this company just exploded, right? In a positive way. Their revenues just like boosted. And all of a sudden you have ChatGPT come out. Yeah. Like, where were you when ChatGPT came out, Tony? Do you remember?
I was probably on LinkedIn.
Yeah, you probably were. Yeah, that's
probably what happened.
That tracked. No, but it's like you go from one extreme high to then and I'm not sure, by the way, do you think they had a meeting, like someone called a meeting internally, what's his name, Rosen, the
CEO, whoever.
The CEO. Yeah. Do you think he called a meeting and like, okay guys, did anyone see this ChatGPT thing? Should we be worried about this? Do you think that happened? I'm not sure, actually.
You know what? I think it did happen.
You think so?
I think it did happen. But what people also kind of in the story need to understand is, this was a $20 a month product. And $20 a month for a student who basically has zero money, has negative money. $20 a month is actually kind of a lot, right? Yeah. And, back then, this was double the cost of a Netflix. Like that was $10 or 99,
right.
$9.99 or something like this, right? This was actually expensive. And they obviously justified this with like, if this helps me get into med school, if this helps me, the $50,000 per semester that my parents are spending to leverage that investment into actually a degree that works out for me, $20 a month is like a nothing burger to me, right? But still it's expensive. Now, when you now enter ChatGPT to the whole thing, Mikkel, how much did ChatGPT cost them?
I think it's about 0.00 bucks. Actually.
So, and obviously what happened with all of those folks is like, you know what? Actually, I think I can cancel my Chegg subscription now.
No, it's like you get one answer from ChatGPT and you go like, okay, yeah, good. Let's do that. let's do that. Actually, it's not like when it came. I remember I think the best example of AI was the Will Smith video. Have you seen this? The spaghetti. Will Smith eating spaghetti. Yeah. And then it went from just a horror show to that's Will Smith.
That's Will Smith eating spaghetti.
That's him. That's actually him. And I can just see like a student going like, wait, this is like, I could have written that. No, actually I couldn't have written it because I didn't study. But if I had studied, I could probably have written that. This looks legitimate. Let's totally use this.
So what happened? This is then basically what kicked off the consumers, students canceling this stuff like crazy, right? Which makes absolute total sense. Makes absolute sense. Kind of this just doesn't, it's not a viable product anymore. And I think this went then hand in hand with Google for some reason. I don't know. I'm not sure how Google was shafting them, but to a degree, kind of that's apparently kind of what happened, right? So basically those two trends overlapping and pretty much, I don't want to, so this is the interesting thing, didn't kill the business. They're still doing like 150 million a quarter in revenues. So it's, and profitable and so forth, right? Kind of this company still exists, but basically got completely, messed up in the process.
But you also know how it goes. First it happened slowly, then it happened very fast all of a sudden, right? So I think that's also potentially what could happen. I think one interesting takeaway from this story we just talked about was the whole, hey, didn't they talk about this AI being a thing? Fun fact, in 2022, they did in fact talked about a AI-powered tutor, right? And just to paint a picture of why would an incumbent not go for this? Why are the incumbents so slow right now? And why are we seeing so many AI startups being funded, basically? It's because some of the decisions that are happening here in this scenario. So why would they not go for the AI tutor? Why is that not in their own interest? Well, they have a contract today with Anthropic. They're paying $1 million reportedly per week. Do you think that's good or bad for margins?
Yeah,
and that's probably pretty bad.
And also, like 3 years ago, and I think this is, I can totally see how this meeting went.
Yeah, we just grew 54%.
Guys, this is not a real thing.
Yeah,
this Gen AI thing is going to blow over real quick. It's just a fad. Who, these guys are going to come back real soon. It's just a correction in our stock price. Like, I can totally see how this happened. And there were efforts internally to kind of build something like this.
Yeah.
And basically was shut down for two reasons, I think. One is margins. That hurts a little bit. But the other one is also like, that, we would be kind of disrupting ourselves. We would be cannibalizing ourselves. You're potentially doing this thing.
Yeah.
And then, see what happened. Like kind of this is the Kodak moment here, right?
Totally.
There's so many situations where it's called this, innovator's dilemma, actually, kind of where this is basically kind of kicking in. And I think what's frustrating here with this example, and we're going to get to how this is relevant for you, dear B2B, listener. What's frustrating with this example here is there was already a product out there that was beating them, that was for free. It was already there. And they, ChatGPT didn't even try and compete with them, right? It's not like, we're going to build a Chegg killer. That was not the idea, right? It just was there. And them being stubborn and not jumping on this train. And what I think is interesting, Duolingo, which is like the darling of this industry right now, they had an AI kind of bot or tutor, I don't know what, kind of a response to AI within a month of ChatGPT launching, right? Coursera, kind of another competitor in this space, kind of had the same thing going on, right? So it's really not that these Chegg guys were blind or oblivious to this, but they just decided against it, which is so hurtful when you think about it.
Yeah, but I can also see it like when you come on the back of that, almost drunk on your own success. And you see this thing appear and it's like, again, we just grew 50 something %. Like it's a cute little technology, but will people really trust it to write out magically an answer to a test that's really difficult to understand because it's like PhD level shit? It's like, you know, now it can. Yeah, totally. That happened, right? And I think that's also, they didn't lose all the users day one of ChatGPT coming out, right? It takes time for this to play out. I think the interesting thing is they're still making money. I don't know if they still will be with this contract, by the way, but they also have a lot of cash sitting around apparently. They still have a fighting chance. Like they also have a brand with some of these students. Maybe that's just dead now, right? Maybe it's just dead because it's ChatGPT and they need to do something else or something differently. But I think it's just, they do have opportunities to kind of change.
For everyone kind of listening and thinking about this stuff, right? So what I think is interesting here is this company got, messed up by the AI wave super early on. Really early on. Why? Well, it was kind of text-based and was a Q&A based product, actually, kind of chat, kind of, hey, here's, but think about it. It's like, oh, here's the question in my test. What's the answer to this, right? Kind of, this is like here's a question, I want to have the answer, right? Q&A based in this sense. And ChatGPT just fitted this bill like exactly, like down to the T, even kind of, oh, help me write this essay. These things, it was just perfect for that stuff, right? Yeah. Which is why I think Chegg was one of the first companies that got messed up with this.
Got axed.
Right?
Yeah. Totally.
But if you now kind of think about it, like what are the second and third level order effects here? It's like, well, there are industries that are still waiting for the infrastructure to be built for AI to actually be applied, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing a couple of these things now happening. But
you have Gong. Gong, I think, is also, it's not been named, but Gong is also suing an AI company that does call recordings, right? So you're seeing some stuff happen now preemptively as well, I would say.
Yes. And the point really is, while you are maybe right now feeling like you're sheltered from the storm, very likely it's just a matter of time, actually. Yeah. Very, very likely that's kind of how you need to think about it. And the reason why Chegg got disrupted immediately was the overlap between those products was like immediately there. If OpenAI would have kind of went for a different use case to showcase their abilities, I don't know what, not chat-based basically, then I think Chegg would have been still, unaffected until someone brought out this chat basically, right? Yeah. And it's the same for everyone listening. It's like whatever you're doing, yes, ChatGPT didn't, so OpenAI didn't start, they did start with chat, and that maybe isn't overlapping with you right now, but as this evolves, it actually might be, right? Yeah. And how are the ways you can think about, trying to defend yourself from this? And I think let's use some of the very specific examples that we found that Chegg kind of failed to use actually. And you might be able to adjust this a little bit to your world, right? So the first one, at least that comes to mind for me, right? Thinking especially around, their competitor of, for example, Coursera and stuff, Chegg had only consumer subscriptions. They basically were only selling stuff to students, right? Yeah. Students have, very low price elasticity, so they basically kind of want to jump immediately.
They're not loyal,
right?
They're not loyal.
No, customers. I mean, and they're also, they're done with studying after. I mean, there are a couple of reasons why this was a difficult segment to begin with. And then, other companies in the space, they had direct relationships with the students. They also sold courses themselves, kind of creating the material, not just relying on universities to use textbooks. And they also sold subscriptions directly to companies, right? Kind of tapping into the L&D budget. So while it might have still been a large share of their revenues for these other companies, it wasn't like 95%, which it was for Chegg, right? Yeah. And I think if you think about your own business, depending on your size, and so if you're below 10 million, you probably only have one product, and don't get me wrong, but if you think about your own business, really, start realizing which of my revenue streams is maybe most likely to be disrupted. Yeah. And then start kind of having some idea of like, how can we at least fortify the other pieces, right? And I think this is, diversifying sounds like so silly. It's such an investor stock thing, but I think this is a worthwhile thing to think about for your own business in this regard.
But I think also when you look at most of the businesses who made it past, let's just say unicorn, they actually have diversified. We've talked about multi-product plays previously on this show, right? It's no reason to, again, I mentioned Gong before, they are more than just call recording by now, right? At some point, maybe in 5-6 years from now, they're going to be a CRM. Like, it's a wonderful business for sure, but it's just to say, like, a lot of those companies that have staying power, they've diversified. They definitely have.
No, but specifically Gong, right? So the company that they're suing is actually helping companies to record meetings very easily.
And let's just say for the lawyers, we don't know if those are the two. We're
pretty sure about it though. But it doesn't actually matter. The thing is, you buy this, you buy the products of this company, and let's just say they're unrelated. You know what? No, I'm not going to say it. You can ping me, you can DM me if you want to know where you can buy it. But basically, kind of as a company, and they kind of give you an API to do call recordings. Super easy. Then you can send this stuff to Whisper, which is OpenAI's transcription service. And then there are probably other subscription services too, transcription services. And then you basically have, parts of what Gong does. Like, if you ask anyone in this space, what is Gong doing? Call recording, like immediately, right? And that part of their business is now very easy to replace using a couple of, stitched together AI pieces, right?
Yeah.
So, think about this stuff like critically, and then think about like how can we diversify, how can we fortify, and so forth, right? Chegg didn't do this, and then stock created. I think another learning from the Chegg guys is to a degree they monetized cheating, right? I can see how this was the blockbuster product. I can absolutely see it, and I don't actually necessarily blame them, I think, for it. But this is what they did, right? They meddled on a little bit, the dark side here. And the problem that this created for them is it became difficult to create, partnerships.
Exactly, with the universities and
exactly. It was more that the university started to actually try and ban Chegg. That's actually what happened, right? It went the opposite direction, but obviously students loved it so much they they found their ways around it. But this in this case has been impeding them to do business in different directions, right? And I think a smarter path for them to take could have been something in the direction of, I think what comes to mind is something like Grammarly, right? Which isn't, to a degree, it's not cheating, using Grammarly in your emails. It's just enhancing you. It's just making you better, right? Not only with some grammar checks, but also with like, this sentence is structured like you're from Germany, Tony, and you're trying to write English. And then you click a button and then it, structures in the right way, right? Those kind of enhancing ways of using AI for you as a human being. I think that is a smarter way to go around it instead of meddling in the really, let's just say, ethically dark end of the spectrum that Chegg did.
I agree. And I think one important thing to note is like when dealing with transformational technology like this and the disruption that follows, we're seeing now the first domino fall. And it's the first domino. There are more waiting in line to go down. I think if it was me, I would be intently looking at what kind of companies are getting funding at the moment. You won't see a lot of the details because a lot will be in stealth. They might not want to reveal their true intentions at the moment, but it's pretty clear that there will be folks gunning for the big, where all the money is. So CRMs, watch out for sure. All the automation and data vendors also watch out. Like where the money is, disruption will follow right now. And you basically need to have a bunch of scouts on the lookout for what investment activity is happening. Is there something in our space where we need to either just quite frankly outpace them with the muscle you've built out in product team and sales and so on? Like, you need to really feel like you have arrows in your back right now.
And the thing is also, and it's also kind of another learning I think from the Chegg guys, is they had this meeting. They were thinking about it. They were like, they're discussing it. They had a solution. There were some engineers working on this project. Like there was stuff actually going in the right direction. They just decided against it, right?
Yeah.
And I think this delaying of the AI shift or AI response or AI strategy, whatever you want to call it, I think that also, bit them in the butt. Like that's basically also what happened, right?
But it's also it's also just interesting when you think about the structure of the business, like not even being willing to use it in some of the production processes, but sticking with freelancers across the world to help produce some of these output. Don't get me wrong, it worked back then, but I think also this is the focus for a lot of business right now is to say, how can we reduce cost? And the reason this matters is you need to stay competitive.
Yeah.
And if you are in a competitive scenario, which is for 99% of the business is the case, and your competitor figures out how to do the same thing only at half the cost, they can start doing things very differently all of a sudden. They can live with a higher CAC. We talked about this in the past. They can lower the price if that's a factor. They can go and hire more people. They can basically out-execute you now as a result of being more efficient with their cash. And so I think that's also just a very interesting kind of like, they made the decision to protect their margins and it screwed them. But, I
think for me, it's actually two slightly different things. I think one is executing an AI strategy, whatever. Like, it's a little bit fluff, but trying to kind of figure out what to do yourself, kind of what product to build and how to adjust your go-to-market based on that, right? Because that can have an impact on pricing in either direction, but you can. I think the other aspect for me is the very specific that you mentioned, kind of protecting your margins, right? It's like, I'm sure their margins are still great, but it's just 90% less revenue, It's and there's kind of a thing here which really is, again, the innovator's dilemma and all of that stuff. Like, to a degree, you have to be willing to sacrifice some of your revenues in order to make the shift work out, because otherwise other people will swoop in and just do it for you, right?
Yeah.
And I think out of all of these things, this one is probably the most difficult. It's the most difficult. Which CRO wouldn't get fired if you came to your CEO and be like, hey, we need to do this thing that's going to cut our revenues by 80%.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah, we should totally do that. Right? It's it's really difficult. All of our incentives, it's so crazy against the grain that I think trying to do that stuff, it's so difficult. It's so difficult.
Yeah.
And I think this is, by the way, also the reason why other companies can disrupt you, because they don't have that problem. They don't have the path dependency. They don't need to walk back. They just need to walk forward, right? Which is such an easier thing for everyone to do.
I, by the way, also think that for some of the bigger, this is like definitely the bigger companies out there, what they're doing in their playbook, just to drive home the point, they basically have a investment arm that invests in startups in their area. So if you're a pharma company, you're going to invest in pharma companies, right? Because you also have the know-how and expertise, and it's also a great way to protect yourself from being disrupted. You own a piece of it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's just to drive home the point that this truly matters. And again, we can talk about all the functional fixedness and all the things like Tesla and the auto industry is another great example. Traditional auto industry depends on working with suppliers to develop the software and develop all these pieces. Super difficult. Tesla owns the entire thing. They just develop it, done, right? And I think...
And the stock dropped 15% yesterday. So
Yeah. But I think you just have to look at your business with very different eyes, and you need to be very, I think, ruthless to start protecting your business, or very smart in terms of the next steps you then take.
I think what I would say is it's less ruthless and smart. It's so difficult, but to a degree, you have to take off your pink tinted glasses. And it's so difficult to do that because, I don't have them on. How's your business going? It's going fantastic. It's I mean, we're all totally biased, and especially as executives. And I think I said this, a couple of times before, we're so geared towards always telling the best possible story and kind of motivate everyone and defend ourselves in the boardroom and do all of these things. Trying to step out of that to assess your business like really and be critical about this. I'm at this point now where I believe you can't do it. I believe that. And I wouldn't even, the next thing that I will try, by the way, to solve this, and I don't think it's a great solution for everyone. Other people get in consultant, but guess who pays the consultant? It's like, it's still you, and they're going to tell you. It's a little bit of a, version of ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT is always super positive. Hey, ChatGPT, I have a business idea. It's a good idea. It's a perfect idea. I think what you should do sometimes is invite disgruntled employees back in, like executives that have an understanding of the business, and ask them what they think is going to happen. And you know what? The reply will be maybe a little negatively, tinted and so forth. But I think it might actually be closer to the truth than what you're telling yourself, right? Kind of try and get that external objective I don't give a shit about you, kind of perspective in to help you, at least push yourself a little bit to see the reality from a slightly different angle.
Speaking of pushing yourself, if you've enjoyed this episode, if you've enjoyed this show, let alone how idiotic the hosts are and you prefer that it was an AI show, do leave a review. It helps us grow the show and we appreciate it a great deal.
Yeah.
I think this was a great show. We're definitely going to lift the quality and beat out all these AI hosts, all these AI shows out there. I think hopefully we won't get disrupted. We just need to protect our margins, Tony.
Hey, this is a fantastic show. This is gonna grow until forever. No one is ever gonna, Okay, everyone, hit the subscribe button, helps a lot, and thanks a bunch, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.